was born into a modest family. At a very young age, I developed asthma, as did my sister. Around the age of 10 or 11, the situation became truly worrying. It was at this time that an extraordinary event occurred. I discovered I had a gift for music, particularly for the piano. This musical discovery became my escape in a family I consider toxic. Music allowed me to mentally detach myself and develop the talent that would later become my profession. I also learned other instruments, including percussion, and played bass in the pop rock scene. Around the age of 13 or 14, my parents gave me a synthesizer, which opened me up to the world of sound and launched me into composing electronic music and creating soundscapes. But my asthma was still a constant presence. I hid behind a facade, presenting myself as a talented musician on stage. But in reality, I was dependent on Ventolin and high doses of cortisone. I took medication to cope in public, but fundamentally, I wasn't well. I couldn't find my balance, even though music helped me cope. At 33, one evening on my way home from the studio, I experienced what every asthmatic dreads: a major attack. I felt my life was in danger. Neither the doctor nor the massive doses of medication could relieve the pain. At the hospital, I was on the verge of unconsciousness when the doctor suggested putting me on a ventilator and inducing a medically induced coma. I was given curare to shut down my nervous system, intubated, and connected to a breathing machine. It was the end of the first part of my life. When I woke up, all I could see was white. At first, I thought I was in heaven, seeing white shapes that I mistook for angels, but they were actually nurses in the ICU. A voice informed me that I was in intensive care, that it was June 2005, and that my condition was critical. Normally, after such a coma, the body resumes its functions, but in my case, nothing happened. I couldn't move a finger, my eyes, or my legs, absolutely nothing. After numerous tests, I was diagnosed with locked-in syndrome. I was trapped inside my body, unable to move. I was experiencing intense pain that I couldn't express. Inwardly, I was screaming because of the medication, the treatments, and this horrible feeling of being paralyzed. This situation lasted about 15 days. Faced with this unbearable situation, I decided to let go. After living a full life, I saw no point in remaining a vegetative. That's when I had an extraordinary experience. I found myself in a space where time no longer existed, on an island floating in space. I was accompanied by a presence whose face I couldn't see, on a magnificent lawn. I no longer had any physical density, only total lightness, bathed in a force of love that held every cell of my body. After being a prisoner of my body, I felt a complete breath, an immeasurable love and air. I understood that I was in a dimension outside of time, different from our three-dimensional reality. The transformative encounter. The being who held my hand then took me somewhere, and I found myself back in my hospital bed, but with completely different sensations. The light and clarity were more intense, and I could move, something I hadn't been able to do before. Beside me was a luminous figure, like an angel, with rays emanating from its body. Hairy from head to toe, it resembled a kind of Merlin, imposing in stature. What was fascinating was that it mirrored all my movements. I decided to communicate with it, and my first question was, "Why so much suffering?" It answered me, without emotion but with love. "You are the one who decides. It's your life. You are a part of the Creator, and you are the one who granted yourself this power to experience it." This answer surprised me. I understood that I was responsible for my experience, that it was a choice, perhaps an initiatory path for evolution. I also asked why the world was suffering so much, and he replied that we are all responsible, that we choose these conditions to experience them, but that we can live differently. I then became aware of our insignificance and the fact that we haven't understood the essential thing: to love one another and to collaborate. The being told me that it wasn't my time, that I had to come back down and do my work to help others. Upon returning to my body, I felt gravity again, the physical limitations, and above all, the intense pain. For 2 days, I was angry to return to this suffering after having experienced such a state of grace. Then miraculously, I began to move slightly, first a finger, then my hand, then my legs and torso. The doctors were amazed to see that in such a short time, I, who had been condemned to immobility, regained the use of my body. I progressed rapidly in rehabilitation, moving from an electric wheelchair to a manual one, and then to crutches. Against medical advice, I asked my sister to bring my car to the hospital, and with my crutches, I managed to get in and go home. It was an incredible victory. This experience completely changed my perception of the world. I went from being an ordinary person, living according to conventional patterns, to someone for whom everything became possible. A whole new realm of possibilities opened up to me. Although confined to my home for nearly 2 years in rehabilitation, I was perfectly content in the present moment, without making any plans. I understood that the less I did, the more I connected with my inner self, and the more things came to me naturally. I discovered that the traditional approach is to look outside, whereas the true approach is to turn inward to find your center. When you succeed, the world adapts to you. I began to experience remarkable synchronicities. For example, just before buying a ticket to Peru, a man I had met at a concert got into my car almost by chance. He handed me his business card. He lived in Peru. It was as if Peru had come to me because I was aligned with that destination in my vibrational field. A synchronicity is a sign of pure consciousness manifesting in physical space to tell us something. I understood that space is the projection of our consciousness. Having worked for over 20 years with analog frequencies in music, I began to understand that everything in the universe is frequency. A shirt, a sofa, a planet, everything is a relationship of movement in space. I discovered that a frequency is a pulsating movement in space, with a particular dynamic and speed. Breathing, heartbeat, brainwaves, everything is frequency. I began to use this knowledge to harmonize all the planes of a human being, the physical body and the subtle bodies. I discovered that healing can be done at the vibrational level by realigning a living system. Today, I say that there is no illness, only vibrational imbalances. Without vibrational imbalance, there is no illness. I spend my time retuning human beings, just as I used to tune musical instruments. In my new life, I have learned the importance of 2 words: yes and thank you. Saying yes because everything that comes to us is a part of ourselves and brings us the best of ourselves. And saying thank you, the magic word. When we are aligned with ourselves, we don't encounter major problems. Problems arise when we are out of sync with ourselves, which creates a vibrational imbalance that can lead to illness. My work consists of deciphering the sound of a human being when they speak. I hear beyond the words. I perceive if the person is grounded in their body, in their physical being. I can then readjust and retune the person to help them rediscover their original sonic signature, their voice of the soul. When we are in harmony with ourselves, we emit frequencies that harmonize us and allow us to become co-creators with the universe. Singing, in particular, allows us to enchant the world, starting with our own cells, like a microwave energizing our body. That's why I love this work of harmonizing the human being through the voice so much. It's the most natural and noble method there is.